Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Jochem Veer. Anyone working with customer journeys will deeply resonate with the struggle to align everyone around a shared understanding of the customer experience. As co-founder and CEO of TheyDo, the customer journey management solution for enterprises, Jochem Veer is pushing the boundaries of modern CX management, enabling true cross-team collaboration in today's increasingly virtual world. Having worked in interaction and UX design for 10 plus years, Jochem is well versed in the power of truly walking in your customer's shoes and passionate about helping companies transform towards a customer-centric way of working. His latest SaaS venture, TheyDo, is a platform that enables companies to visualize, standardize, and scale journey management so that their business goals align with customer needs. So sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right into this fantastic conversation. Welcome, Jochem.
Thanks for having me, Yannick. Pleasure to be here.
All right. We always like to ask our guests in their own words, even though we do read your bio and it kind of gives us a formal overview of your journey. In your own words, could you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. And I tie it into what we broader speak about when we talk about customer experience. I have a background in interaction design, UX design. And before we started TheyDo, we were consulting services. And basically helping big companies in the Fortune 500 kind of like size to transform their way of working, really bring customer experience, which usually happens or was an add-on for customer service, but bring it to the front and allow everyone to see how their work impacts the customer experience and set up processes like design thinking or instill the way of working around journeys in a company so that everyone can participate in customer experience. And what we noticed was there wasn't a good solution out there to turn journey maps or insights that you got from, let's say, customer service or your voice of customer program into all your journeys and make sure that everyone could stay aligned, other than, journeys that are usually created as flat maps to understand part of the customer experience. So that's when we started to build something on our own, first for our little consulting firm, which we used to do for helping our customers, until some of those larger firms, like today we have Johnson & Johnson, NCR, those big firms that really want to deliver a great customer experience across the board, wanted to license our product. And today we are an enterprise solution and we are just getting started on our growth trajectory.
All right. Now, customer journey mapping is very important for any business. It's definitely something we talk about all the time. Could you tell us maybe one or two things that are key performance indicators if a company is trying to, let's say, do a remap, or maybe they've never done it before, they're trying to figure out, what is the journey of their customer? What do they want the journey to be?
Yeah, in terms of performance indicators, I like to think about like what is the maturity of an organization as a whole, how they can actually work, let's say, journey-centric or customer-centric, but customer centricity is really like a no-brainer today. It's really about how to set up a process that works for you as a company. And we typically see that comes in stages. You start with like, hey, there's a bunch of teams doing some journeys, figuring out the customer experience through the lens of a customer journey on a project level. But at some point, they start to bring these things together and start to align across different teams using journeys as the way to do that. And that's the early sign of, hey, the company is starting to get ready to get basically reorganized around the journeys, around the customer experience. And that happens naturally. And that's the moment that they start looking for tools like us or a platform like us. But the performance indicator really is about, we want to deliver a great customer experience, whatever that means. Like Amazon has maybe speed and low prices as their differentiating customer experience, where others might go really into the feeling, the part of the experience. So when that is the highest strategic goal of a company, then you need a process and a way of working around your journeys that unifies everyone to work as one.
Mm. Okay. Have you found that things have changed a lot, especially in terms of customers' expectations since the pandemic? What are some of the things that your organization is doing that helps to help organizations kind of emerge out of this, this global event that we're all had to experience?
Yeah, a funny story is that we incorporated or we started TheyDo right before news started hitting. We're based in Europe, but before the news started hitting here, so we weren't really aware what this was going to be, and we were building a journey management solution to align across the silos in the organization and across the different teams and keeping everyone in sync with the customer journey. So yeah, in one way, COVID was a great opportunity for us to understand if we were onto something, because if there's one thing that happened in a lot of organizations, that the silos that typically are, because we have divisions and each have their own KPIs and focus areas, and we all know that, and we don't want to work like that, but we do. But the pandemic showed that within those silos, there were islands. People were forced to work from home if they weren't doing that already, and found it even harder to stay aligned and used more meetings, more PowerPoints, more dashboards, more whiteboard collaboration to stay in sync. And what we actually saw was that, lucky for us, this problem became so apparent that it propelled us into, how you said it, a more rapid growth than we expected, because people understood that to stay in sync, they needed better tools to line around the customer experience than their dashboards or their whiteboards could offer.
Okay, so we were kind of talking about the KPIs as it relates to customer experience and the journey mapping process. So I was about to get into asking you, what would be some of your recommendations if a company really wanted to, you speak about in your bio that your organization, TheyDo, focuses on that whole journey mapping strategy and standardizing. Like, could you give me an example? Maybe you can use any random industry, but just give us an example of what are some of the things that you do as an organization that can help your clients to master their customer experience and increase customer loyalty.
Yeah, sure. So let's take banking as an example. And we believe like the best and the modern companies of the future, they will work journey centric, to work as one, focusing on improving the customer experience. And what that basically means is that we're providing a platform so you can not only map out all their journeys, design them, maintain them, manage them basically, but also create a unified framework where all these journeys add up to the customer experience, and then start to work from insight to implementation. And I'll get to that in a second, but let's take banking for an example. So let's say you're a big bank and you have all these different products, right? You have mortgages, you have personal loans, you have bank accounts, of course, and you have all these different financial products. So looking at the customer experience, you can imagine for all these different products, there are so many different journeys that you can understand or try to understand how people, customers, non-customers, are trying to solve their problems, buy products, or in the case of a mortgage, for instance, get a mortgage. Mm-hmm. But as you would understand, you want to build a system that actually is scalable, and the customer experience should really be something that you can do together. So in any product a bank offers, the user, the customer, the non-customer becoming a customer probably needs to identify herself, right? So who are you and what are you doing? So let's say they do that digitally. So the journey of online identification, that's a little journey. It has a few steps. Do this, do that, customer experience this, they confirm, they upload a passport, and they feel happy that they've achieved something. It's a very basic example. Mm-hmm. But that's a journey. But in the customer experience, from the bank perspective, whether a team is focused on mortgages as a product or on personal loans, they are typically not talking to each other, not even connected. But as you can understand, the journey of online identification impacts the customer experience in all these different departments. So if the bank can then set up a journey framework unifying all these journeys through the lens of the customer experience, but also dissect it through all the different products or the domains or maybe even the regions they're servicing, you can actually create that unified framework. And we're basically providing you with the building blocks and the frameworks to set up a journey management system and then basically manage your journeys the way you manage products.
All right, perfect. Love it. All right, thank you so much for that example. I think it's important for us to give practical examples so that way our listeners can really navigate and marry what you're saying into their own businesses so they can get a better understanding of how this works. All right, so Jochem, could you share with us what is the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Ooh, that's a very good one. I'll be a little bit transparent here. So what we're doing is we are the core users of TheyDo, right? We have a journey management setup on our own, but we're actually building a tool for the largest organizations across the globe, right? Enterprise. But we are a scale up. So we're a little bit smaller than the enterprise, and we're the core users of our own platform. So we have our journeys mapped out, our journey hierarchy, we prioritize within them. But we also use Notion. And I think that is like the shared brain in our team, where we document, align on more granular level than I would say on the journey, really go into details of certain aspects of what we're building, how we're building it, our processes live there, a way of working, part of our HR, our company handbook, all that stuff, that's living in Notion. And that's the place to go for async communication for us when it gets more detailed than the opportunities in the customer journey.
Okay. And could you also share with our listeners, could you share maybe one or two books that have had the biggest impact on you? It could be a book that you read a very long time ago, or even one that you've read recently, but it has had a great impact on you.
Yeah, there's a few that come to mind. So what has a very big impact on me, or had a big impact on me, and it was when I was still a student. I think I was like 19 or 20 years old, and I read Flow from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And even though it might be a little bit outdated today, there are so much new theories about getting into that flow state and what it means and how to experience that or how to get into that flow state. For the first time in my life, I realized like, hey, there's this mind of mine that is like a muscle, and you can train it to focus it on specific parts and then really enjoy the process of doing. And as a designer and today as a CEO of a company, I still believe that getting into that flow state and really enjoying the process of making, of manifesting, of creating is something I learned from that book and I hold very dear. So that is one that comes to mind while back. And more recently, I'm really into productivity, right? As a leader of a company, you have to manage so many different things, juggle a lot of balls at the same time. Also have a family of 2 kids. Maybe there will be a third at some point in time. So a lot of balls in the air. Mm-hmm. But all the getting things done or other productivity methods seem to take into account that there's always more to do, and time fills as there's more time available to do more things. So I'm reading now 4,000 Weeks, and I'm blanking on the author. I'm sorry. Maybe we can put them in the show notes. Mm-hmm. And that basically takes a different step. So you have basically 4,000 weeks to live, give and take. Weeks to live in your life. And it's okay to let go of certain things and really enjoy the moment and take a different stab at productivity. And I really like to read that because it gives me peace of mind. So that's another one that is doing good for me today.
Great. All right. So we'll have the links to those books in the show notes of this episode so our listeners can tap into all that awesomeness. Now, could you also share what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about? It could be something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing that's going on right now is making the transition from being a designer. I mean, I love to observe how people behave, especially in large organizations, how they collaborate and how we can improve that, especially from the customer experience standpoint. That has been my focus for the last, I would say, more than a decade almost. Mm-hmm. But for the first time in our company, we now have a full-fledged product team that also includes a product designer. And my role is now really not in the product anymore. It's really on the business itself more than it was ever. And I'm transitioning in that role, learning, trying to become that support for the whole team, for not only the managers but also for everyone in the company, to say, hey, we're going to do this together, and I have your back. And that role is entirely new to me, so figuring it out as we go. But that's an exciting part of creating this journey management business.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, now our listeners would have tapped into this episode and they're thinking to themselves, how can we get in touch with TheyDo or Jochem Veer? If they wanted to find you online, where is the best place they can find you?
So the easiest way would be just reach out on LinkedIn. You can find me at Jochem Veer, obviously. But you can also go to TheyDo.io. And what I actually did is I prepared a little page for this podcast. So if you go to TheyDo.io/podcast, so /podcast, you'll see a little landing page. Because if you're serious about becoming a journey-centric company or work in a company that is actually making steps to make this a reality, you work in customer experience, you want to do this, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to help you set this up. So on that page, TheyDo.io/podcast, I've set up a little Calendly link. You can just book a meeting with me and I'll help you set up shop.
All right, sounds good. Now, we always like to ask our guests as we wrap our show up, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? It kind of helps to get you back on track or get you back refocused if for any reason you got derailed.
Yeah, if I get derailed, well, I'm not always thinking about quotes, but one that comes to mind often is, and I think it was Picasso, I think it's attributed to him most, is like, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. And I love that phrasing.
The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away.
Right.
Oh, it's really profound. What is your interpretation of that quote?
Well, you can say it in the altruistic way, right? But as everyone is today also working in business, I take it a little bit differently. I really enjoy being good at some stuff, and I also know my own limitations. But bringing that what you're really good at to the world is such a nice way to enjoy your days instead of being only goal-oriented. Like, we have to perform, we have to deliver, we have to drive revenue, we have to create customer experiences that people love and enjoy. It's actually the act of doing every day, waking up, getting to do the work, whatever the work is you do, and enjoying the process of doing that is amazing. And if you found your gift, whether you work in CX or customer service, and you really love what you're doing, then basically you are giving away your gift. And I think that's an amazing way to go about your day.
Yeah. All right. It's like you're living a life that is filled with passion and you're passing that passion on to others.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jochem, for joining us on Navigating the Customer Experience podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy evening, because I checked the local time in Amsterdam and it's like 8 o'clock now, right?
Right, so, it is, right. But I have a lovely wife and she's putting the kids to bed.
So that's awesome. Well, we do appreciate you taking time out of your night to share with us all of these great nuggets and insights as it relates to journey mapping and getting a great handle on trying to figure out what's the best way to navigate the processes and systems that your customers have to go through to make that as frictionless and as effortless as possible. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me, Anik. My pleasure. It was really nice talking to you.
Just want to remind our listeners to feel free to follow us on Twitter at Navigating CX. And you can also feel free to join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.